All right, Teva, let's kick off.
All right, I'm gonna share screen. This is a motherboard that we will be using, or at least I will be using if nobody else is going to use it. I'll share the link again on the chat if new people are joining in. I don't know if they see the history, but you can always repeat that. Is the recording on? So I'm basically officially going to start the Beyond Minimum Viable Governance workshop. And first, before we go into it, I've drawn first thing as a square here, which is the Beyond MVG group itself. It's a square because it has permissions and that is like a structured way. But in the end, what we are trying to achieve is effective governance. And we try to always continuously improve Cardano governance system itself. And we do it with like structured way and evidence-backed way. But in order to do that, we also need people's input. And for that, we have created these like workshop operations. They're built in a way that I have also like workshop guides along with it. So those who feel like they could facilitate their own workshops and or contribute to this collective information aggregation that we are conducting here, then yeah, you can also take it away and run your own workshops. But for now, with this first iteration, kind of let's go through the motions and some kind of discussions and see how we feel and where we end up with. The workshop goal is to have some captured lived experiences and like desired outcomes from Cardano governance measurements and like measuring Cardano in general, and dependencies what we have when we are like doing some on-chain interactions and what it will affect. Getting all that together with our team, and you will find many of us here, Maureen, Danielle, Kelvin, Peter, and Ken is in this call, and Fanny there, who are also helping every week. We meet and try to process information and go and prepare this experience for you. And yeah, once we capture this and collect it, we will help to create actionable next steps for Cardano proposal statements and Cardano improvement proposals. And already those who have followed us, you can see we have made the draft governance framework, which we then, with this information, like keep updating and improving and understanding these frameworks we are using. Also, here are some slide text for those who are using it. I'm mainly going to use only slide deck, but we have a bit more insight on governance measurement framework itself. So I'm going to read through one of the notes. And this slide is about how people don't just appear in the governance report, but actually shape it over time. What's important to understand is that the governance measurement framework is intentionally adaptive. It's not one-time assessment or a static scorecard. Instead, it's designed so that the community behavior and feedback continuously shape both the results and how the framework itself evolves. There are three main ways people influence the report. First, on-chain actions create direct measurable impact. Every time ADA holders vote or delegate, every time DReps publish rationales, register, retire, and so on. And in governance actions, those behaviors directly change the quantitative metrics we report on. These are not abstract signals, they're ledger recorded actions that flow straight into measurements. So this gives a little of a context of the stuff you're measuring and like what they're going to be about. And the framework basically covers like 4 stakeholders: ADA holders, DReps, SPOs, CCs. Nowadays, actually legally, we are ADA owners now, but this is a topic for another thing, but even this is a lived experience. And all of these like stakeholders are then moved into the questions and a bit of context around the question in the below these boxes that we will go through. But before I jump into, is there any questions about like the structure of the workshop itself? Yeah, and then you just raise your hand. I already see some questions or like some chat happening. Yeah, it's a treasury funded team on the call, includes myself, Ken, that was mentioned earlier. So this was indeed a community initiative in a sense. I do agree there has been a less co-createdness, but now we are in this stage where we prepared a bunch of material, help to think through it, and now we are in this I can feel this moment where we can finally co-create the result and the report. Okay, if there are no questions, then with the people around this call, I feel like currently we have plenty of it. So instead of introducing each other, but I would like to go a round table and then mention what stakeholder are you? Are you ADA holder? Are you DRep, SPO? You can be multiples. So we just kind of get a glance of who are the people who are in this call itself, and or something else, a stakeholder that is not mentioned but is important for the Cardano governance. Then you can also mention that. I see also new people are joining here. Thanks, Daniela, dropping the new motherboard. So those who are able and they can put notes directly into motherboard. Otherwise, you can use chat, and we'll be then moving information from chat to motherboard itself. And I will also try to take some notes my own. So starting with myself, I don't know, maybe let's see what happens if people join into the motherboard. We give 2 minutes, try to navigate yourself to this welcome and agenda location and see if you can grab a sticky with your stakeholder and put your name down. I'm gonna try it here. And like this, so we may have multiple names if you are running multiple rows. I see one CC member. Yeah, I was wondering, based on what we're gonna end up seeing here, the color amount and the people amount in different, if we choose questions based on what's the least found members, so that we can cover that. Let's see if I can see only one CC representation, and if I zoom out on the right side, and there is speed of constitutional committee. I know this is related to CC question. If you can cover that, what you guys think? Shall we dive in?
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right. Okay, first question. What factors affect how quickly the Constitutional Committee can review and vote on governance actions? This is then a metric about measuring average Constitutional Committee response time to governance actions. And a bit of background information to get us thinking. Also, I'm gonna bring everything to me. So this is the area where we are working on in the middle of writing your name. The Constitutional Committee serves as a mandatory constitutional gatekeeper for Cardano governance under CIP 1694. Governance actions cannot be enacted without CC review and approval, making the committee's effectiveness a critical systemic dependency. Abstention is an explicit voting option for Constitutional Committee members, but persistent or elevated abstention can weaken constitutional oversight. This metric tracks how often CC members abstain from voting to assess whether constitutional guidance is sufficiently clear and whether members are able to exercise independent judgment. So based on that, let's give another 3 minutes on the top of 20 minutes to put your notes down in chat or in the motherboard of what factors affect how quickly the Constitutional Committee can review and vote on governance actions. And based on these lived experiences or your understanding of their work or your expectation of their work, this stakeholder work, how each stakeholders and perspective then understand that. And then we have a bit of a discussion around with open hands to go through them And then we have a probing question too, which we later will go into. Okay, we have been 2 minutes in. Let's get some other voices other than me into this call. Everybody who has some chat up or don't have, but wants to give their answer to this question, please raise your hands. Not done soon. Okay, thank you, Kitama. Then I will start the roundtable. But Kitama, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, there is no pressure on the CC, right, to vote early on the governance or info action, right? Because the DReps may not look at how the constitutionality of the action, right? So that way they may take their own time to vote near the ending, so that their decision making does not affect how a DRep votes, and also that how a DRep votes should not affect their decision making capabilities. So that's why there is a gap where how when they vote. That's what I think. Because if they vote early, it may look like, okay, if it is unconstitutional, why should the DReps vote or even look into the proposal? So that is why I think there is a late voting by the CC.
Thank you. Lloyd, your hand up next.
Hi, Tivo. So actually, the way I've seen the operations of the various CC members thus far, from when I've been able to observe, it's been that they are having actually some fairly substantial debates about, the items covered in these things. I posted in there that there's both technical and social things that are slowing the CC from voting. One of the biggest things is that they have open debate, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, but then they don't have any real tooling. This is a very specific kind of bespoke, unique thing that they do, which is, get their, however each of these individual bodies exist, they get their people or their groups together and they have these ad hoc discussions, and maybe synchronously have a discussion on a Google Meet, or asynchronously through some kind of Discord or Slack channel. They have their discussion, and then there's no way to really capture that. So there's nothing that's sense making that and showing the public what that looks like, that they're actually putting that work in. And after all that is done, you then also have to go and perform some highly technical steps in order to post your feedback. So you've got to get it right from a social perspective, then you've got to get it right from a technical perspective, and then you have to post it. So these things actually do take a significant amount of time, unless it's a single actor kind of CC member.
I was wondering, how hard it is for the multi-sig owners. Like, does everybody, they have their own rules, and they probably also discuss, like, is our rules good so far? And then they also get this internal operational discussion every time they do a governance action. Ken, you have your hand up, and as also part of the CC, I think you're...
I'll just put a hands on, and I think Lloyd literally nailed it there on several points. I wrote in the tab there that the earlier a proposer reached out to, let's say, CC, so there's currently no way to reach out to all CC members at once, for example. I think if we just had like a heads up for a proposal, our response time will be much faster. Currently, at the moment, we are like seek and destroy. So we are like seeking down people, or like we hear rumors something is coming, and that's actually when we are able to, let's say, get in touch with the proposal first and get the intention and see if it actually is constitutional.
So we got over one question, and this is how the practice goes. Now, as a next question, as to low color amount, I see we have SPOs and others, which are into budget committee secretary and IoG ecosystem governance. Interesting. So yeah, well, we don't have specialized questions for them, but if we do have time, we can come up with something. Let's move to SPO questions. I think we have SPO participation here, power concentration, and yeah, I guess maybe the power concentration is more about the DReps, less about the SPOs, although they are similar. So let's take the SPO participation question and try to tackle that one. What factors encourage or discourage SPOs from participating in governance voting? And this is measuring about SPO engagement in governance, and the context: network security and resilience in Cardano depend on behavior and stability of stateful operators who plays a formal oversight role in security critical governance decisions. Understanding what drives or discourages SPO voting participation allows governance processes to be better designed, reducing friction, ensuring SPOs can consistently perform the security and oversight responsibilities.
I'm really glad to see that the information that I've heard is being repeated here on the board. Everybody's talking about repeatedly accessing their cold keys and how much of a problem that is. Like, that's something, talk about a low-hanging fruit that we need to discuss and figure out how to resolve. I have heard that so many times from SPOs.
Yeah, those who have finished reading, if they want, they can also organize, because I do feel like this one we have opportunity to group similar stuff together and see where the where the top of the head.
And you know, just this may be a little bit of a unique perspective, Tivo, but you know, just from working governance actions a lot in what I do, it's just really nice when SPOs do state their opinion and put their rationale out. It's just a great additional data point to have. You know, some DReps don't even put rationales, but I see, you know, thoughtful rationales from SPOs when they're casting their ballots on stuff that they're not even responsible for. So it's just good stewardship of the community. And so it's really neat to see when that happens. And if we can get that cold key objection out of the way, I just feel like there'd be a lot more, because they're the stewards of our ecosystem. They really are. So I think they'd be more active if it wasn't a potential issue.
Not sure if everybody wrote it down, but I noted that if their feedback, if SPO feedback is considered, because I think there is one side that we're just putting the rationale out there and for months and no feedback, and just spend time and time. But now hearing somebody that there is a role that does value that feedback, but doesn't have that mechanism to kind of recognize that, maybe there is also like a winning point here. Because it would definitely encourage me more if I would know that my feedback matters. But if my ADA amount and nobody does give any feedback, it's like, why do I even hear? So this silent treatment is maybe also affecting us.
I'm curious about the one confusing which proposals SPOs can or should vote on. If whoever wrote that is willing to speak to that, where do you go to try to learn which ones you should be voting on or not to start off with? And why is that confusing?
You're looking at this one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I could add just a little bit there. I wrote something similar, not that ticket, but I think mainly the parameter change updates, probably, like it's the same action and it's the same action name, but they're only required to vote on, I can't remember what the parameter names are. So at face value, if there's a parameter update, you're not sure as an SPO whether you should or shouldn't vote on it or need to. And I think the only place that information really exists is when an action goes on chain, checking explorers to see if your little SPO boxes, you don't vote on this one. But some explorers don't quite have that right anyway. So good look there. And the only other place that I use is like Mike Hornan's infographics, because he's got a real good one for SPOs and what you should vote on.
Yeah, I do want to add a point to that. There have been a couple of comments about the tools that are available apparently some governance tools say SPOs can vote on certain proposals, and then you go to another tool and it's a different situation. Mark, I don't know if you have seen that. I can't confirm because I don't have that, but I was wondering if any SPO in here has that.
Yeah, you're pretty much right. Some explorers show different results. So getting the standard, and there's other working groups that have already trying to get that going. So I don't know how you encourage all the different explorers to adopt the same standard. That would be great from this regard, but also great in general, so that the percentage results of who's voted is the same DB sync query, for example. At the minute, like you check a proposal on 5 different explorers and there's 5 different percentages. So it's like that, yeah.
And
Yeah, I just want to chime in with Mark said that this from this one of the outcomes from this will actually be copy and paste for you, for those who wants to use it, to actually do the measurement and the queries and the visuals.
Quintana.
Yeah. Like what happened with the CC, right? We just had CC elections and we had put a new CC members, and then someone resigns, and there was a like a kind of block for the governance, and we had to elect new CC, right? So SPOs had to vote on the same action twice, right, in a very short span of time. And if, let's say, CC votes any action unconstitutional, right, after the SPOs vote and DReps vote, at the end, if the CC votes is an unconstitutional governance action, they have to re-vote on if that is again put forward as a governance action after that one. So all of these things, like where with the load tooling that is currently available, right, they have to vote again and again on the same actions, is kind of hectic work for them, because they are already taking care of the security of the chain, right? So if they are not involved so much in governance, it can be fatigue, a governance voting fatigue for them, because they are not signed for governance, they are signed for the security of the chain. So they have their role specified. DReps role is to vote on actions, debate, discuss, and give feedback. So there is putting too much pressure on SPOs to do all the other stuff also.
Lloyd, you can go ahead.
Just a quick note from our side, from the Intersect side. I've pushed for it, and we've maintained it, I think, on nearly every info action, that we actually put forth a means for you to test how the action can be accepted. So it's immutable in the metadata of the action itself, how to test the action for whether or not it's passed. So that way it's, it helps a little. I know it's not the perfect solution, but it's what we've had up to this point, is that we actually do include a, how to validate this info action inside the info action itself. And
just before I go to Daniele, we have a probing question here that we're answering, and I already see we're getting into that. Like, what would make it easier for SPOs to engage in more actively in governance? And I see like the CIP links, or that what you just mentioned about the validating info action inside the info action. These are like great notes, and if somebody else comes up with solutions or knows something, then shout it out, put it in chat or whatever, and we will take it from there. But Daniela, you had your hand up. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I was just curious, given Quintana's discussion on the role of the SPO originally, and that it's really securing the network, and now they have to vote. I'm just curious if there are SPOs who are like glad or happy that they did get a vote on certain decisions like security critical protocol parameters and hard forks, or if they would have, does everybody as an SPO generally feel like I didn't need to vote at all? I see, Mark, you're kind of shaking your head or nodding, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I'm glad SPOs vote on at least security parameters or technical parameters. I mean, I know a lot of DReps and they're not suited to understand that stuff. And I'm not like, I don't know the chain inside out. So it takes a lot for me to understand that stuff. But yeah, you need to have a technical prowess to vote on that type of thing, in my opinion. And taking SPOs into account that's what we've got as Cardano. They are our technical arms. So yeah.
All right. I would like to hear from Ian Hartwell if you are in this call and listening, because you also noted yourself that you're a SPO. And did you put any kind of notes down? Something that or you are agreeing with somebody else?
Yeah, I just put 2 of the purple notes in there. Many SPOs are reluctant to expose the cold keys repeatedly when voting on actions. And then having to access the cold environment usually involves extra steps because you have to go from one computer to another to transfer vote files and create vote files and submit them. Current DReps maybe have registered with a wallet and they're not familiar with those extra steps. So I just wanted to raise awareness there that, as an SPO, there usually is. I know some DReps like myself also operate with a cold environment, but many DReps would just be, connecting a wallet to a website and voting that way. So I just wanted to raise awareness of that extra step in case people weren't familiar. And then, like Ryan's raised there on some of the green Post-it notes, what would make it easier? There is currently something called the Calidus keys that Martin from Atada Stake Pool has worked on. That would allow SPOs to vote from a wallet because you can just use a seed phrase. You verify ownership by linking it to your stake pool keys. But unfortunately, at present, that method of voting is not supported, and it would require being implemented into a hard fork in the future for that to be an option. Yep, they're the points that I can think of at the moment. Thank you.
Have you voted on governance action yourself? Like you speak of like going through this pain of getting the call keys and knowing the process, but have you like participated in like rationale or voting yourself?
Yep. Don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I've got 100% voting record on all info actions and non-critical, the more critical actions too. And as of all of last year, I put a rationale with all of them, even if it was just a pointer to the transaction hash of my DRep vote, just so there was a link there. So my delegators could see, although it wasn't required of an SPO, I put a link on there just so they could see where the DRep vote that was being counted and what my rationale was there.
Yeah. Oh, one more question, just because I see a lot of problems, but what encouraged you to do all of that work? Because that's a crazy amount of actions to go through as an SPO. And like, what made you want to do that call?
I participated as an SPO and a DRep in the early days of SanchoNet. So I learned how to use the command line from an early day before like the in-wallet registration options became available. So I was already comfortable with like the process. And then after a while, it just became, just like a personal goal, really. Like I wanted to keep that 100% record. So even though I appreciate a lot of people don't want to vote on info actions as an SPO, as I'm doing it, I'm usually accessing my cold environment because my DRep uses cold keys too in that way. So while I'm at it, it's not so much of an extra step for me as a SPO and DRep to carry out those actions while I'm in the process. So yeah, personal preference more than anything, but yeah.
Thank you. Kitana.
Yeah, I had a question for SPOs who are in the meeting, right? I just wanted to know that if you vote on a governance action related to parameters or anything where SPO needs to vote, right? So if the vote passes, like do the SPO need to update their node or something, or update the protocol or something, or if the voting is enough to just pass it on and do nothing else, because if SPO votes yes but does not update his node or something, is that a no or a yes? Like, because for SPOs, if they want to show their action, right, the decision, their action of updating the node itself is an yes action for the governance action parameter or anything, right? So why do they need to do the same thing twice? Voting yes and then again downloading the node. If they agree with the parameter, they can download the node. If not, it is fine not to download and be on the previous version, right? So this is something that can I think SPO can better answer, like, do they, if they have to update the node or something.
I am an SPO, but I have no clue. If Ian has, sounds like a technical. Look, the way I understand the question was like, how does protocol version affect governance actions when voting? Do you need to do double vote when?
I'm not an SPO, but my understanding is a protocol parameter change is once the vote happens, the ledger then automatically updates. But the difference, the governance action where that's not the case, and I would love if someone else could confirm this is actually how it's working in the real world. A hard fork will require an action after the vote passes.
Yeah, the only. Oh, you
There you go,
Ken.
Mark. You are SPO. You can have us on.
Yeah, well, yeah, the only time you'd update your node as a result of a governance action is a hard fork. Yeah, you wouldn't. If I'm understanding what the question is, for parameter changes, that's all handled on chain automatically. SPOs wouldn't need to do anything. It's only the hard fork.
Yeah, so normally before a hard fork action gets submitted, it will be monitored the current SPO adoption rate, and it would have to hit a certain percentage before they would even consider submitting the hard fork action. Otherwise, you could end up with some big problems. As far as parameters go, because they're not like big ledger level changes, you don't have to update your node. It will just it would happen within the current rules, and things would just carry on like as normal. But yeah, only hard forks would require a node upgrade.
Did that answer your question, Kintama?
Yes, it answered.
And Ken, you have your hand up, or?
Yeah. So just to get back on topic, to those who are SPOs, do you think that you will get more ADA delegated to you if you participate in governance?
Honestly, no, I don't think that's going to help. Yeah, one of my tickets up there was like SPOs had no incentive and weren't really asked, well, to participate in governance. It's just became a thing after the fact. I mean, unless you registered when governance was already in full swing, obviously, but yeah. I don't know, but hopefully results of this working group or the work you do, right, will show hopefully the flows of ADA based on voting action. Like,
Yeah.
did we see any flows? Yeah.
Do you feel like the ADA owners, like appreciate, like, oh, Mark, your stakeholder did the right thing and voted in my direction, so I'm going to delegate to that guy. What about you, Ian? You feel
I'd say
that?
there's definitely some, because you can see there are a couple of people that are putting effort and have got increased stake. So I would say that's probably a result of their governance actions, but I don't know. I'd say it's a small number of people, ADA owners or holders, whatever, that are actually monitoring that to make their decision. I mean, let's face it, the incentive is the percentage return. So as long as I'm getting that, I'm probably going to be happy.
I mean, it would be nice if the the participation was recognized in that way. But this is where the important distinction comes in between DReps and SPO delegation. You can move your stake between DReps and you don't have a financial consequence to that. But if you move to you might have a really active but small SPO, and if you move to them because they're active in voting, you might not get as many, that SPO might not get as many blocks as the one you're with. So there is that element of the financial connection that an SPO has when it comes to governance that a DRep doesn't have. So that could impact whether delegators would move between. And then also knowing, like, education around, you know, if people are saying why are SPOs dragging their feet on this action, people may or may not know that they can move their stake to the SPOs that have voted. Admittedly, it doesn't happen as quick because you have a 2 epoch delay between your vote delegation changing with an SPO, whereas with a DRep, I think it's like that epoch, isn't it? So there's a few subtle differences there. But yeah, they're the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
I just want to round this question up. So both Mark and Ian here, at least I know, participate in governance. Are you scared of losing delegation? Let's say if you only putting forward your vote.
The cynical answer to that question is kind of hard to lose what you haven't got. I mean, me and Mark are both quite small pools, and you'll usually find, sadly, that it is the smaller pools that do tend to be more active in governance, because, you know, some may or may not see that as a way to distinguish themselves from more established players. I mean, I know that's partly myself, like I like to be active to show that. But yeah, speaking from my own perspective, yeah, I've never been above 1 million delegation with my pool. So I feel quite okay with voting the way that I vote because I don't have that risk. Maybe surveying some larger pools, you might get a different answer. But that's my take.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would say, yeah, there's definitely, if I got a lot of delegation, I would definitely think twice about my rationales and who I vote for. I mean, we've already seen the consequence for certain products on Cardano that, you know, no names mentioned, delegated XYZ and were publicly destroyed for the fact. So to say that there's no social pressure involved in that, as yeah, we'll be ignoring it. So yeah, exactly like Ian said, right now, what have I got to lose? If I had a lot, then I'd behave very differently. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Tavo, do we have time for one more?
Okay, let's go for another one. But technically, if now people joined here for 1 hour call, then we don't have a time for another one. But if people have time to push through and can sit through another 20 minutes or so, then definitely we could take another question. At worst, we could start the one and finish with those who will stay here. But when we kick it off, you can leave your notes. And because I think a little bit we have started to talk about power concentration, but in SPO style. But we have a DRep question here, which I think allows us to understand these kinds of mechanics of how delegations affect each other. So maybe we jump on this question. Voting power has become more concentrated among DReps since the role was established. What do you think most contributes to this change? And this is then measuring voting power concentration, Gini coefficient, Nakamoto coefficient. And the context is decentralization requires not only participation, but also balanced distribution of influence and transparent representation. Evaluate whether delegated voting power is broadly distributed, whether the representative layer remains active, and whether governance decisions are accompanied by publicly accessible rationales. Together, these metrics assess whether Cardano's representative governance avoids concentration of power and operates in alignment with the decentralization and transparency principles articulated in CAP 16.94 and the Cardano Constitution. So, use your chat, choose a motherboard, and to answer, voting power has become more concentrated. What do you think most contributes to this change? Okay, while people are still typing, we'll do a quick closing. It doesn't mean that we have to go, but yeah, Daniel already mentioned that those who do want to hop off, there is this Beyond the link tree, which was the one that probably brought you in, unless there was a one-to-one conversation invite from somebody. Can teach you just, Maureen, to go break some arms if people don't join. I don't know how many people have broken arms here. We're going to have 2 more workshops on 27th January and 21st. One is like completely different time zone, but one other one is on Saturday, those who cannot make it in the week. And then I don't probably even like today or tomorrow, we will see if we need more workshops to go through this, and then we just add more, and we'll be listing all of that new information to this link tree. And also on the top here on the context documents, you will see these articles, Essential Cardano. So any news that will come will also come here, where we share our latest updates. So these are ways to keep connected. Or yeah, just wherever you saw, if you're in the Discord, wherever you saw my message or invites, you can also directly just type in these Discords. This means that I'm actively looking at these Discord servers.
Yeah, and also just to note that we have surveys with different questions, more details as for each of these roles. So for SPOs, for DReps, data owners. So if you're interested in providing more detailed feedback, please fill out the surveys. They're different questions than what we're covering in the workshops.
Yeah, and they're a bit different too, so you don't have to write a lot of text, but we have to give you like options so that we can create these like scorecards. And they're not surveys that take hours to complete, which sometimes you read like intersect survey only takes 5 minutes, and then an hour later I'm like, okay, last page finally. But we'll see. Sometimes it does take time to think through what we have experienced through. So for those who are left here, raise your hands in the Google Meet if you want to kick it off with some discussions with this topic on what do you think most contributes to this change of DReps concentrating power. And if nobody raises hand, I will put input endorsers on spot, because I know you are a DRep. You mentioned it there, so I would like to hear your take on it.
Okay, thanks, Tivo. Well, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I'm not sure why the concentration happens. I mean, we can all guess, right? But I think it's primarily like I put like people have, you know, regular lives, and often many people don't participate in their local communal elections or something that might influence their lives even more. Not to mention that crypto is complicated, Cardano governance is multi-layered, complicated. You really need to devote a lot of time. So I think the normal reaction of an average person is to default to a simple shortcut, when faced with complexity. And what would happen in an average person's mind is, what I think is, they would look, okay, look, these people are large DReps. There must be some reason why they're popular. So they're probably taking care of the system, and I'll delegate to them, and that's it. Because it's really difficult, even as a DRep or a SPO, even more, to follow everything that's happening. So I think reducing complexity of governance, simplifying processes, simplifying the structure of governance, simplifying constitution, simplifying the type of actions that are possible. Overall, simplification is probably a win, and some kind of uniformity, like even for a DRep reading, like if I could read proposals that are following a same pattern of presentation where I can easily navigate through it and know, okay, it has this part, it has this part. I mean, for ADA holders, it's probably multiple times more complicated. So I think simplification is a win. How to do it, I don't know, but that's my instinct. Thank you.
Thank you. Pitama, you have a hand up?
Yeah. I would say that the information on the rationale, right, is if you go to any governance tooling where you can read the rationale, it is not so good when you're trying to read, because the way it is shown, the rationale of DReps, it is very, how do I say, it's very not user friendly, right? If you want to compare rationale of DReps or voting, again, it is very difficult to even take notice that when did the DRep vote, when did this action even, when did he put a rationale for it, or did he change the rationale again after voting, or where did he debate or discuss on these things, uh, or what is he thinking, right? Other than the rationale, I cannot. It's if you're not actively taking part in governance or on various social platforms where the discussion takes place, right? As a normal ADA owner, you rarely get the information reaching to you. Whereas if you go to in real world, right, anything that happens related to government, right, you get from news articles, from news media reports, or from somewhere that, okay, news reporting happens of some statement that comes out or some document that is being done. So that information is not reaching to the people who want to delegate to someone else, right? Okay, is he speaking my point, or what is he even speaking about? So there is a very information gap between what is happening and what is reaching to the ADA owner. That is why the delegation is not moving so much as it should be.
Thank you. Next hand I see from Ken.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys agree with me, but are we sure that every, let's say, ADA owner knows that they can delegate and redelegate? So, you don't read about this in, Cointelegraph, or it's been spoken on in the biggest YouTube channels where, let's say, the ordinary holders are. And the second one is that I think that might contribute to the concentration of DReps is that the majority of all ADA in the circulating supply is actually parked on centralized exchanges. I don't know if people agree about that, but it's just a hunch from me, because let's say Cardano governance really don't hit the headlines, to put it like that, in the governance crypto space.
Nana Safo.
Yeah, I think the major cause of delegation concentration has to do with historical ties and and prior knowledge. People for a very long time have been accustomed to certain entities and certain individuals in the ecosystem in terms of their participation and the kind of things that they do. And for that matter, they find it easy to sort of trust them. And, they don't necessarily find it maybe plausible to even want to look at other options, right? So they begin to stick, or they get to stick with these entities and individuals wherever they move and wherever they go, without having to think of, looking at others. And I also think the other issues has to do with the fact that some DReps, when they vote, they are able to, you know, in the rationale, they're able to have the IPFS link, only the IPFS link in there, right? Which when you click on, usually takes you to GitHub, and you know how GitHub presents these rationales, right? It is very difficult to really want to read the entirety of the message to even understand what they are saying. So I think something like that also affects, you know, delegators, and they are not able to really read and understand what is happening or what their DReps are voting. And for that matter, they tend to even, you know, ignore that particular process of having to check on their DReps. And of course, some of them too, they don't have enough time to even check their own DReps. Yet again, even check other DReps and how they are, you know, sort of faring in the ecosystem. And for that matter, they are not able to, you know, switch delegation. They just become stagnant at one DRep, and that is it.
Yeah, I'll add to that, since nobody else had their hand up, just that I choose to directly vote because it feels easier than assessing a DRep that I would want to trust. I find it much easier to engage directly than trust somebody else and figure out who I would trust enough to do so. Which actually goes towards the other direction of decentralizing voting for rather than centralizing, but it doesn't seem to be the norm.
I second that. I think, yeah, direct voter should be an option on the table, voiced more often.
Isn't direct voting actually the decentralization part? Because that's the peak decentralization we can have if everybody votes themselves.
Well, I wouldn't say everyone votes directly, but a lot more people work like that, and people start reading each other's rationale, reading their friends' rationale to inform their vote. Instead of having to do the whole homework, they can build on their friends and their trusted peers' decision.
I wonder if Wilco, Randy, Ryan wants to put some thoughts in there or want to share something. Because I know, Ryan, you're a vocal in usually these discussions.
Yeah, I've just been scattering a bunch of notes all over the thing, trying to brainstorm my ideas. I think a lot of the green ones are mine, but I'm happy to expand on them if anybody's interested.
Sure. If you say green ones, I would like, for example, the K we use for SPOs. Sounds something that you would write. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm actually working on an idea for this. I won't get to that yet, but the K we use for SPOs basically is only tied to rewards, right? You could put as much ADA as you want in the pool, and the pool will make more blocks, but you only get rewards up to that threshold set by K. The reason that wouldn't necessarily work for DReps right now is because there's no rewards for being a DRep, right? So you can't incentivize people to redelegate because the DRep is over a cap because of you would forfeit rewards because there's no rewards to forfeit. So I guess there's kind of you could put consideration to putting a hard cap or maybe some sort of quadratic voting. Those also have trade-offs, or trying to incentivize it in such a way that you spread out voting power instead of concentrating it. So one idea I was just brainstorming just minutes ago actually is instead of rewarding the top K DReps, what if we reward the second K DReps? Whereas instead, like say it's 100, instead of rewarding the top 100 DReps, you reward DReps 101 through 200. And that incentivizes people to delegate away from those. But I'm still putting that together, so.
Mark?
Yeah, it's really cool to hear you're working on that, Ryan. Like, and exactly like you say, without any incentive mechanism in the first place, what's the point of having a K parameter? Yeah, and that's what I was trying to write in that post-it. Another incentive I've heard thrown about was some sort of lottery payment mechanism, which, of course, has its drawbacks, but can help. So it'd be great. It'd be great to look at what you're looking into, if there's anywhere.
There's actually an IO research paper I can drop the link to that I was basing a lot of it, and also I think Thomas, forget his last name, wrote an interesting SIP on it as well. I'll drop both of the links to those in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Quintama?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that if someone is delegating to a retired DRep, is that person still getting staking rewards, right? If someone can answer that, because if you know, like Cardano Whale, right, he's a retired DRep, but he still holds like almost 50 million ADA in voting power. That is way more than a lot of DReps combined, you know. So, if the ADA owners are still getting the staking rewards, if the DReps have retired.
I can quickly answer that, and the answer is yes.
Yeah. I wonder how when we go into like incentivization, like with financials, it kind of gives you this experiment option. Like, okay, let's just throw in 100,000 data and see what happens, and then you just throw it through a mechanism. But the danger there is, so far, almost everything I see that has happened in Cardano, the experiments stick to their like. For example, in Catalyst, oh, let's try reviewers, and now we never get rid of the reviewers, or like the people who were assessing the proposals. And the game was like, as soon as with the same thing, I don't know, like with the SPOs, like to me, I don't feel like the K parameter ever really worked, or the pledge stuff for the SPOs. Like it was somewhat a cool experiment, but it failed. But we never really got rid of them either. They just kind of stay there forever now. And so, how would we introduce like these new experiments or games into DReps? Would we want it to be like time bound, or has there been any thought of that? Like, how would you introduce like, hey, let's this quarter or this year we try this kind of incentive model? And could it be then done like that? Because that probably, like, yeah, where does these funds coming from? Are they like treasury withdrawals and somebody administrates it, or is it literally protocol design, which makes it cooler for to present Cardano as a product, but probably much harder to maintain, because then we need to always discuss and have governance actions in order to maintain it. And Ryan?
I think, so you mentioned like paying it from the treasury. I think a cool way to think about it actually is we already have a deposit, a government actions deposit that's pretty high at 100K ADA tied to each proposal to prevent people from spamming proposals. What if a portion of that proposal deposit was set aside as a small fee for DReps? That way you could actually lower the proposal, the deposit rather, to maybe 50K ADA, and then set aside 1% of it to pay all the DReps who actually vote on it, or the top end DReps that actually vote on it. It'd probably be just a couple ADA per vote, but it would be self-sustainable and it wouldn't require treasury funding or routine maintenance. But that's basically kind of the idea that's that Thomas shared in the SIP I put. Just something food for thought.
We got a thumbs down from Gintama on that. If you're comfortable sharing your thoughts, that's always interesting to hear the opposing viewpoints.
Yeah, like paying DReps from the action fee, right? It is like taxing the people who are willing to put forward their work, right? For putting forward their idea, right? Whether it passes or not, right? There is no one. The thing is that DReps are involuntarily stepping up right now to stand up in the position that they are as an agent of the ADA owners, right? No one forced anyone here, and now putting a fee for them to vote, right? And taking that fee from the proposer of the idea. It is taxing the ideas of the people. Even if you reduce it to 10,000 ADA as a fee, right? It is at the end you're taxing the ideas, and then you're like stopping creativity from coming up into real tangible actions on chain. The people vote. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's 1%, 0.1%, or 0 point anything. Taxing an idea is the wrong move any cultural shift can bring, right? In the longer term, where people just don't bring ideas on the chain at all, and there's no creativity going on, you know. So for me, taxing anyone for putting forward their idea proposal is a very bad move to just to reward DReps to participate in governance. There are other today in blockchain, right? There are various other incentives that can be created and made, right? Like prediction markets that I still believe are very bigger, more beneficially for today's blockchain system governance, where the DReps, bet on their action that I'm voting yes, and I'm also betting money on the yes option, and they earn. Like there are another theory that can be done, but we do not need to follow the first century tax and spend system that has been done for a lot of kingdoms and empires in previous years, which was breaking the ideas and a chain on the on people's mind. So I'm very against taking any fee from these things.
Would note from a chat, very interesting that the cost of staking rewards lost tying up some 100K deposit for 6 epoch is about 200, 300. And we didn't know you actually lose deposit. So I thought you only sign your ADA, but you're actually locking it to smart contract that is not delegated. Is that what happens? Okay.
More or less, yeah. It doesn't earn staking rewards.
Kitama, you have something more?
Yeah, I had a question, right? So, if anyone can answer this, so if the DRep has now deregistered himself from from the governance, so does the chain does not automatically clean itself? Again, this person has not been active or deregistered for a certain amount of epochs or time. So now we remove him from the DRep directory or something like that. Is that something that has been put forward in previous discussion or workshops or something? Or is it possible?
I can just chime in and say that it has been debated, especially during Edinburgh when they, let's say, laid the foundation for 1694. It was decided not to do that. But yeah, it's a debate that came up that may, let's say, make flushing of it.
All right. No, well, we got another question down, and it took about 30 minutes or so. How does people feel? Do we want to take another one? What's the energy? User reactions? Or shall we call it a day? Call it a day. I see no reactions, so it seems there is no burning desire to brainstorm more, get stuff up. But thank you for everybody for joining. There is a lot of notes there, and the team will go into them, organize them, and get some summaries. What I will personally be doing is we have part of this, actually not in here, so I'm going to show you the workshop guide template a bit. This is something if you want to run the workshops yourself, go to discussions. If there are these survey questions, which you can also answer, but if you have your own team and just feel like I need to get some cool thoughts into it, and then we are collecting this stuff also all into this forum, where I will be listing the same questions that we covered today and summarizing them into this forum, and then that will be then processed by AI and our team into the report itself. But the report itself will take a bit like week, at least a week. Maybe at the second week we start to kind of get something out there. So yeah, as a closing, I already shared before, but there are new. I think only Martin joined here later. You will find more updates, probably, if anything will come on this essential Cardano, so that this link tree, like the main stuff where you can find what happens. All the resources are here, all the documents are here, all the other surveys are here, and other workshops that we plan this week. And there are different time zones, but if this time zone was okay for you, then probably the Saturday session will also fit, assuming you will have weekend free. When I started Cardano, I started with using weekend time. So this is opportunity for those who are in day-to-day activities, stuck in work which is not Cardano. Again, thanks for joining. And whoever wants to have a final call out or feedback, you're welcome to do so. But I'm done.
I just want to say congrats for the great work. It's great to see the team working together. Looking forward to future ones and the outputs.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a great discussion today. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys, for coming. I just want to say, Tavo and I were scared that it's only going to be him talking to himself, but you guys are here, so I really appreciate it personally.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.